It's going to be a shell of a time. Cowabunga! Welcome to the Bear's Lair, where we're going to be diving into Turtle Power, the Commander deck. We're going to break this open, see what's inside, break down the deck, and then, well, have a little shenanigans. I hope you brought some pizza. So talking about this is from the Universals Beyond. This is Turtle Power. This is a 5-color deck that you end up having 5 different colors. And it's a +1/+1 counters that matter. But this has a little bit of extra sauce that's going to be going on with it. And we'll break that down when we end up doing the deck review. That's right, we're going to have a deck review as well. Right now, this is just the unboxing of the deck itself. Then we can see where you could be expecting. And when you, or if you open this. So, they normally have a ripcord, which is right here. Before we end up ripping it, it's pretty much the standard box that you end up having for your entire Commander decks. Includes 100 cards that's in there, 43 new cards, a deck box, 10 double-sided tokens, a strategy insert, and a reference card. And it has a point where you can end up picking up the entire deck list. So let's see if we can go one rip. Nope, failure. So we'll just do it the hard way. Turtle Power. So, we're going to crack her open. Slide out the insert. There's the deck. Here's the little Commander deck. Here's a little book telling you how to play it, what's going on, what Commander is, what different kinds of colors that we end up having. The box that you can have. It's a simple, boop, push it together, and there we go. Instant box. And now we can attack this from this side. Pinch that over. Bring that up. Like so. Slide the deck. Shoop. And that has everything that you can. Oh, okay. So you can find your local gaming shop. I love it that it has a turtle that's right there. You have +1/+1 counters that you can end up having. It has Splinter on the back. And that's all you can get. So let's switch it back on over. So it's a very minuscule way that you can end up having to open it. And it's a very solid deck. It's going to be out of the gate. But now you're wondering what's in the deck. Well, we got you covered. Oh, you can't see that one. That one you can't see. This is the one you end up needing to see. So your base Commander is going to be Heroes in the Half Shell out of the box. This is going to be a 5 colors. So it has white, blue, black, green, and red. It's a legendary creature. Well, it's your Commander. It's a 5/5. Vigilance, Menace, Trample, and Haste. That's what this guy has. Well, guys. And then whenever one or more mutant ninjas and or turtles you control deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on each of those creatures and draw a card. It's not bad. It's a solid way that goes over with it, but I prefer the other methods that we're going to end up going down. And we'll talk about that in a couple moments. However, this is pretty much your vanilla Commander. This is the one that works with everything that goes along with the Commander out of the box. And you do have a second other option that you end up going with. It's a solid Commander, though, because you end up having that. But I kind of wanted something that doesn't have all 5 pips where you end up having, because it's a 5-color deck, so you're going to have a complicated that's going to be able to get mana. I want to be able to rush out some stuff. So changing off from this 5-color casting definitely does with it. But we got to make sure we retain the 5 colors, because these are the colors that decide what your Commander is going to be. If you're going to keep it 5 colors, your real option is going to be Leonardo the Balance. Costs 3 and a white, so 4 altogether for a 3/3, and has whenever a token you control enters, you may put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Do this only once per turn. And this is where it kicks in, because it has the entire 5 cost color mana that we end up needing. It has the white, blue, black, red, and green. So this keeps the color identity of the deck itself because it's right here on the creature itself. Creatures you control gain minutes, trample, and lifelink until end of turn. And here's the awesome part about this, and this is something that's a hidden value that's in the deck itself. It has partner, character select. You can choose 2 commanders that both have these abilities. So you have 6 different options that you can end up going. Well, I guess 5 different options that you can end up going. Leo makes sure that you can keep it at 5 different colors. But you have other choices, such as Donnie the Brains. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus a mutagen token are created instead. So let's talk about mutagen real quick. Mutagen is where you can end up sacrificing the artifact, which is a mutagen token, and you can pay 1, tap it, sacrifice it, and put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature. As you can see, this has that partner select, so you can end up having Donnie being a partner with Leo, or you can end up having Michelangelo be a partner with Leo, which has trample, and then it has raid, and then in parentheses, the fridge. At the beginning of your second main phase, if you attack this turn, so he doesn't have to attack. If you just attack, period, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature and create a food token. Food tokens, you can end up paying 3, tapping it, sacrificing it, and gaining 3 life. As well, you can see the partner select has a base power of a 2/1. But you got Mikey that could end up being a little bit more aggro because it's a nice little 2-drop. We got Raph, the muscle. Double all damage that creatures you control with all counters on them will deal. So that means that we end up making double damage with any creatures that have counters on them. He costs us 5 though, so it costs us 4 and a red. And then when he enters the battlefield, we get to create a mutagen token. So it allows us to be able to pay an extra 1 and make it immediately a creature that has a counter on it. So we got Raph, we got Splinter, who has cost us 2. Black and 1 for a 2/2, has Menace or Menace. That means it has to be blocked by 2 or more creatures, so it can't be solo blocked. And then whenever Splinter or another non-token creature you control leaves the battlefield, create a mutagen token. So that's kind of amazing. However, one that is not a foil in there, and that is going to be April O'Neil live on the scene. Another 2-drop, so it'll cost us 1 and a blue for 2/1. It's a human detective, and then whenever a mutant, ninja, or a turtle you control enters, investigate. You create a clue token. It's an artifact with pay 2, sacrifice this token, draw a card. So you have a bunch of different avenues that comes over with it. So this deck's really more of a sandbox deck that you can end up building it however you ended up wanting to it. In a future video, I'll show you how I ended up going with it. But like I was saying, that this is a solid deck right off the box. So normally I'll break down all this stuff before I end up doing this. But I really want to feature something that's huge that's on this deck. With it being 5 color, your mana base is a must. You must have a good mana base. And guess what? Wizards actually stepped up and made a solid mana base. This is a solid start to be able to go off any kind of deck that you have. With Ash Barrens, where we can end up basic land cycling to get whatever land that we end up needing. There we go. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger for you. Big Apple, 3 a.m. This land enters tapped. Choose a color. Some more fixing. Tap, add 1 mana of the chosen color. Pay 5, tap it, create a 1/1 black rat creature token for each opponent yet you have. So this is another good enabler for Leo that you end up having because you can pay 5, tap it, and make a rat on someone else's turn because it doesn't have that if it's a sorcery level. All the best comic books start in the dark alleys. Michelangelo, nice flavor text. You have Cinderglade, which is another reprint. And there's tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. Ooh, basic lands, huh? Okay. City of Brass. Here's a big notable reprint that we ended up getting in this commander deck. Whenever this land becomes tapped, it deals 1 damage to you. Tap, add 1 mana of any color. So at the cost of 1 life, you get to make any kind of color mana. Command Tower. The good old classic staple, Dragon's Skull Summit. It's a land that enters tapped unless you control a swamp or a mountain. Escape Tunnel. Sacrifice this land. Search your library for a basic land card. Put it onto the battlefield tap and then shuffle. or we could tap it, sacrifice it, and target creature with a power of 2 or less can't be blocked this turn. See, the problem I have is most likely my creatures are going to be bigger than what that's going to end up being, so I'm pretty much using this just for the mana fixing is what the game plan would be. Evolving Wilds, sacrifice it, look for land. It comes into tapped. Exotic Orchard, add 1 mana of any color that land opponent controls can produce. So we look off of see what the opponents have. This taps for any of the mana that they end up producing. Fabled Passage is another way to be able to get any kind of basic land that we're looking for. And it has a plus if we have 4 more lands, it comes into play untapped. Basic Forest, well, it's pretty basic. Grand Coliseum, this land enters tapped. Tap a colorless, or tap, add 1 mana of any color. This land deals 1 damage to you. So, more mana fixing at the cost of a life. Hidden Hideout, enters tapped. Tap, add 1 mana of any color in your color or commander's color identity. Pay 2, tap it. Target creature you control with a counter on it gains lifelink until end of turn. Hinterland Harbor, enter tapped unless we control a forest or an island. It's another good reprint, try to fix it. And Basic Island, Basic Mountain, Path to Ancestry. This is a very unique land. It enters tapped, but for 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. And then when you spend this mana to cast a creature spell that shares a type with your commander, scry 1. That means we get to look at the top card of our library, and we may put that card at the bottom. Scrying is fun because you roll over, making sure you're filtered to get good stuff. Basic Plains, Range Select Clopes, enters tapped, and it has a cycling of 2. It's also somewhat fetchable if like the fetch lands because it has the forest/island subtype. Rootbrand Crag, good classic, another check land. Spelling Marsh, more checks to see if you have 2 or more basic lands. Sword and Vordru, this land enters tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands, so more checking. Spire Garden. This is another big one that we ended up getting a reprint of. This land enters tapped unless you control or unless you have 2 or more opponents. So this checks the opponents that we end up having. There's another one that has a good one that has this. A Sunken House, a tap land. Swamp, Thriving Grove. More mana fixing that you can end up having. Turtle's Lair. Tap, add a colorless. Or tap, add 1 mana of any color. Spend this only to cast a ninja or a turtle spell. Pay 3, tap it. Target ninja or turtle can't be blocked this turn. And this is the other one that we have that is deals with the opponents that you end up having. This is Undergrowth Stadium. Taps for a green or a black. Unless we have 2 or more opponents, it comes into play tapped then. Vern Fen. Enters tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. Vibrant Cityscape. This is notorious. This is from Spider-Man. This is another Evolving Wilds or Terramorphic Expanse. This is more color fixing. We get to tap, sacrifice this, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tap, and then shuffle. Alright, so that covers the lands. This is the most mana fixing that you can end up having and has some quality reprints that's inside this. So, while we got that going on, let's talk about the creatures that we end up having. We'll start off with this classic Forest Hydra, but it's actually Arguogum with the skin. So if you don't know what this is, it's that this is the creature type, but this is actually a new skin of this creature right here, the Forest Hydra. Has trample. This creature enters with X amount of +1/+1 counters on it, and when this creature enters, choose 1. Double the number of +1/+1 counters on it. On this creature, or this creature fights a creature that you don't control. So you have the option to make it either bigger, or you have an option to make it fight. And the cost is 2 green and an X. Comes in as a 0/1, so if you don't end up paying anything, it doesn't die immediately. And then we already covered April O'Neil in our opening, talking about the character select scenario. Solid card, solid way that we can end up going with it. Baxter, the Fly in the Ointment, has whenever it enters or attacks, each creature you control with a counter on it has flying until end of turn. Whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on Baxter. It's a 2/2, so it could be your commander that you have. Can't be your commander for this deck. This is another unique one that we end up having. You have Bebop, Skull and Crossbones. Partner Rough Rocksteady. That means when it enters the battlefield, target player may put Rocksteady into their hand from their library and then shuffle. Has Dust Touch, and here's the big abilities for him. Whenever Bebop deals combat damage to a player, you may draw X amount of cards, where X is the number of counters on Bebop. If you do, you lose X amount of life. Has a 2/1 body. So it's an interesting pairing that you can end up having that being a partner with Rocksteady here, Mutant Marauder, and that's a crazy little thing. So while we got that going on, let's immediately go over down to Rocksteady. Mutant Marauder costs 2 and a green, is a 3/3. Partner with Bebop, Skull and Crossbones, and that means we end up, if we play this, we get to look for Bebop, or if we play Bebop, we get to look for Mr. Rocksteady here. Has Trample, and then whenever another non-token creature you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature. Solid abilities, and it's nice to have the little pairings because it's a classic pairing that you have with Bebop and Rocksteady. We'll talk about the Big Mother Mouser. This creature enters with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Oh, and it costs us 4. It has 0, so it's entering with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So if there's something like Salinity out there, we're in trouble because it will just die right off the get-go because it needs those counters to be able to live. Whenever this creature attacks, double the number of +1/+1 counters on it. When this creature dies, create a number of 1/1 colorless robot artifact creature tokens equal to the number of +1/+1 counters on this creature. So it gets bigger and bigger, and when they ultimately kill it, it makes a bunch of little robots that we got going on. That is definitely a Mother Mouser. Biogenic Ooze costs 5, so 2 and 3. 2 green and 3. And then when it enters the battlefield, we get to create a 2/2 green Ooze creature token. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on each Ooze that you control. And then it has the ability where we could end up paying about 4 and create a 2/2 green Ooze creature token. Another one that makes it so Leo can end up triggering on your opponent's turns. Casey Jones, Back Alley Brute, costs 3 and a red, and it's a 4/2 legendary creature, so it could be another commander for some other deck. Can't be one for this deck, but for any other deck. And then whenever Casey Jones attacks, put a +1/+1 on the target attacking creature. And then whenever you put a +1/+1 counter or more, put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a target creature you control, Casey Jones deals that much damage to the target opponent. So this is another all will be one that would be going off. If you don't know what that is, all will be one. It's an enchantment. Is that whenever you put a +1/+1 counter on it, it deals damage equal to the number of +1/+1 counters that you have. Dimension X, Pizzasaur. It's another way that you can end up destroying creatures. We're going to try speeding it up a little bit. Covered down. Electric Seaweed. This is a call out to the video games, so it's a pretty awesome way that it comes over with it. Tap this creature, it deals 1 damage to any target. Vigor. Here's another big reprint that we ended up getting in this deck. It has Trample, and then if a damage will be dealt to another creature you control, prevent that damage. Put a +1/+1 counter on that creature for each 1 damage that is prevented this way. When Vigor is put into the graveyard from anywhere, shuffle it into the owner's library. So it is a skin, or it has a new skin of Heralds of Shredder, and it has the same old mana cost of 3 and 3 green. Solid reprint, prevents combat damage, and then grows your entire team. Corpse Jack Menace has a new skin in Humongous Fungus, and it doubles the amount of +1/+1 counters you put on to something. Irma, Part-Time Mutant. Is interesting. At the beginning of combat on your turn, Irma becomes a copy of 1 target creature you control, except that it's named Irma, Part-Time Mutant, and has this ability. And then you put a +1/+1 counter on her. Crane is another drawing machine that you can end up having. If a player drawing a card causes a trigger ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So if something triggers, this is like a Panharmonicon for whenever a player draws a card. That means it does it again and again. Whenever a player draws their second card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So as you can see, it has a built-in ability that's also going to be triggering off that. So you're going to immediately get value off Crane. if they're drawing cards, because he's going to be triggering himself as well. Leatherback, Leatherhead, Iron Gator, Trample, Haste, and then whenever it attacks, put 2+1/+1 counters on each creature you control. More token or counter generation. Leo, we have already covered. Lita, Little Orphan Amphibian, but it's a turtle, so it's not an amphibian. Flavor fail. Whenever another creature you control enters the battlefield, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Put a +1/+1 counter on Lita, create a food token, or scry 1. Aesthetic Slime has a new skin with Marauding Mutagen. Michelangelo, we already covered. Mona Lisa, Science Geek. It has reach and has tap at X amount of mana of 1 color, and where X is the Mona Lisa's power. So more Rampage that we could end up having. Covered Wrath. Rat King comes in with Rat King, the Pale Piper, costs 3 and a black, so 4 altogether. Menace. And then whenever Rat King or another non-token creature you control leaves the battlefield, create a 1/1 black rat creature token. Pay 2, sacrifice a token, draw a card. So you get to create more rats as you sacrifice a token, and it keeps on going. Has a 3/3 body. Ray Fillet, Wave Warrior, it costs 2 and a blue, and it has flying. And then it has Evolve. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield with a greater power or toughness of this creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever a creature you control with a counter on it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Roadkill Rodney. It has Squad 3, so that means as an additional cost to casting this spell, you may pay 3 any number of times. When this creature enters the battlefield, create that many creature tokens, copies of it. So let's say that you pay 5, so you get another copy of this. Or if you pay 8, you end up getting 2 extra copies of this. So you get 3 copies in total. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, create a mutagen token. Rocksteady, we've already covered. Shredder, Shadow Master. It has whenever Shredder attacks a player, for each opponent, create a copy of Shredder tapped and attacking that player, except for it isn't legendary. Sacrifice those tokens at the end of combat. Whenever Shredder deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life rounded up. That's right, whenever any of the Shredders end up hitting an opponent, they end up losing half of their life rounded up. Has a 5/5 body, so this is some shenanigans that you could end up having. I think this is the final different skin of a card. This is Stalebane Hydra that got a skin, Slash's clone. This creature enters with X amount +1/+1 counters on it, and then we get to remove a +1 counter from this creature, destroy a target artifact or enchantment. It has the X and 2 green as the cost for it. Splinter, we've already covered. Temptra, Dame of Games, has it costs 1 and a red. It has pay 2 and a red. Sacrifice an artifact. Create a token that's a copy of another creature you control, except for it isn't legendary. It gains haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. It's a 1/3 body. So again, more ways to be able to get Leo to trigger off. Toka and Reza unsupervised. Costs 2 and a red. First strike. And then whenever a non-token creature you control leaves the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Toka and Reza. Create a treasure token. This ability only triggers once each turn. It's a 3/3 body. There's a better version of them in the packs that can end up having some crazy things. I think it does 2 damage whenever they play a non-creature spell or something like that. Blasphemous Act is a classic sorcery that we have, so we're diving into the sorceries now, where it could be as low as 1 red, depending on how many creatures, because however many creatures, it costs 1 colorless less for each creature that's on the battlefield. Blasphemous Act deals 13 damage to each creature. Cultivate, more mana fixing. Fast Forward, another one that just got created for this. This spell costs 1 colorless less to cast for each opponent that attacked you this turn. Gold all creatures your opponents control until the next turn. Those creatures attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. So if you're heads up against a person, that means that if you're going against, it's one-on-one, this isn't going to be a good spell. But, however, if you have any other opponents, this is going to be able to funnel the people that they have to attack that other person. Game over. Game over, man. Costs 3 and a black. This spell costs 2 colors less to cast if the player's life total is less than, equal, or to half of their starting life total. Destroy all creatures. Harmonize, good old classic green where you get to draw 3 cards. Here comes a new hero. Another card that was just created for this. Target player draws X amount of cards. Create a token that's a copy of up to one target creature with a mana value of X or less. So you have X that you pay into it and 2 and a blue. Lessons from life. And this is one of those unique ones where you get to draw 3 cards and you get to put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tab. So it's a little bit of a growth spiral with a little additional to it. But what's cool about it is that you see right here, you end up seeing the Turtles playing Magic the Gathering. That ended up putting it a little bit uproar, but I love this because, well, what's more amazing than watching the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles playing Magic? Super combo, Vanquish the Horde, another classic board wipe that costs less for each creature that's on the battlefield, where it can end up costing 2 white. Wave Goodbye, another good way to bounce creatures that don't have +1/+1 counters on them to its owner's hands. Now we're in the instance with Assassin's Trophy, where we get to destroy a target permanent. I love this art. This reminds me of the movie. Continue? ? Choose up to 4 target creatures in your graveyard that were put there for battle this turn. Return them to the battlefield. So if we have 4 creatures dying, we can end up playing this and we'll be able to immediately bring them back. It's a little bit of shenanigans. And then you have this that has the fuse mechanic that's right here with it. You can play both sides at the exact same time. You just have to pay the mana for it. So shocked. More game talking. Special move. Swift Demise. It deals 1 damage to our target creature, and then each creature that you don't control that was dealt damage this turn dies. So now we're in the artifacts, which this has a little shenanigans that we can end up having. Like I said, this has a little sub-theme of +1/+1 counters on that's going to be on it. When this artifact enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each of 4 target creatures. Tap or pay to tap it, sacrifice a token, double the amount of counters on a target creature. Arcane Signet, some good old mana fixing with the turtle comp being the art. Chromatic Lantern, making it so it can end up tapping for all different colors manas, and it also taps for 1 mana itself. I love it because it's a Turtle in Time little device right there, which I'm not a big fan of that 3rd movie, but anyways, we'll go on. Coin of the Mastery costs 4, and then each creature that you control enters with an additional +1/+1 counter for each mana that from an artifact source that was spent on it. Create a treasure token, or we can tap it and create a treasure token. Everything Pizza, Exploding Barrel, Foot Chopper, Mole Module. Good old classic Soul Ring, having a good old skin. Endless Footless Assault has that as a squad mechanic that you can see right here. And then whenever you attack for each opponent, create a 1/1 black ninja creature token that is tapped and attacking that player. High score. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters will be put on a creature you control, that many +1. So you get to put an additional +1/+1 counter on something that comes into play. And then at the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with the greatest power among the creatures on the battlefield, draw a card. Level up. Oh man, this thing has so much flavor. Ninja Pizza. Food that you control have tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color. So it takes our food and makes it so that we can end up using it as a treasure token. At the beginning of your second main phase, create a food token. Together Forever. Whenever this enchantment enters support 2, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 creatures. Pay 1, target creature you control with a +1/+1 counter. When it dies, it returns to its owner's hand. And then we're over back to the mana fixing. So we'll swap from this and talk about it real quick. So this is a solid deck that you end up having. Has a solid start that you can end up playing with it. Has a good mana fixing that's going to be with that. This is the first time I would say this is the best mana base that I've seen for a 5-color deck. They put some solid reprints that's in this deck. They have some solid flavors. And I love it that it has a toolbox where you can end up deciding which way that you want it to be going. And you can end up building it. Granted, we only got one commander deck that came out with this set. But I think it's actually a benefit for itself because it ends up having different avenues that you can end up making it and how you ended up wanting to build it. I love the themes that it has movie references, it has the cartoon references, it has comic references, and it has the video game references. So it covers all the medias that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have been in, and it's definitely a solid pickup that you can end up trying for your own self, trying to figure out a different path that you go. You can end up using the Phase Commander, or you can use the Player Select. Spoilers, we ended up going to Player Select because, well, we have enough of the other commander decks, and I think it's an interesting mechanic because I do love the fact that you can end up pairing everything while keeping the deck what it is. So what do you think of the deck? Are you picking it up? Let us know down in the comments down below. Sorry that I know this is a little bit longer of a video. I'm going to try speeding it up as much as I can end up doing. Try to do a little bit of editing, but it's 100 cards. It's something that we got to end up covering. So, with that said, until next time, we'll see you guys later. Cowabunga!